I am Lisa Arbisser, cantor here at SAJ-Judaism, that stands for all. I'm so excited to have this program here today in our beautiful space with these amazing musicians, a program that builds on previous artistic endeavors supported here at SAJ, and which we hope will forge a path forward for even more musical performances in the future. After a devastating year for performing artists, we are proud to be able to provide space for this program, and we are very fortunate to have Claudia Naffo, who brought everyone and everything together, to our Rabbi, Lauren Grabel-Herman, who encouraged Claudia to use our space and who helped get this program up and running, and to Diane Cole and Phil Barnett for their generous financial support. SAJ is a joyous community of New Yorkers, a Jewish home where everyone's voice is valued and heard. We are a synagogue with a marvelous history, including being the birthplace of Reconstructionist Judaism, the newest branch of a 5,000-year-old tradition. We are a community that believes it is possible to live a 21st century life that is deeply rooted in both Jewish tradition and contemporary civilization. Judaism helps us find meaning and inspiration as we seek to lead lives committed to spiritual growth, social justice, and building community. Our founding rabbi, Mordecai Kaplan, believed that Judaism is more than a religion, it is a civilization. Part of that is a deep appreciation for culture and the arts and the understanding that music, regardless of whether it is set to liturgy and religious texts, can stir the soul and the heart, enough so that we can encounter beauty and perhaps a connection with something larger than ourselves. This is why supporting today's program is so important and fundamental to who we are at SAJ, and we are grateful to have the technology to share it with listeners around the globe during this pandemic, so that everyone may enjoy this music in the safest way possible. You can learn more about SAJ and Reconstructionist Judaism at our website, saj.nyc. I now invite Claudia Naffo to speak more about the Alive and Live concert series and today's program.
Thank you, Lisa. So I'm going to sit at the piano because that's where I'm most comfortable, especially after a year of not being at the piano. And I just want to talk a little bit about the genesis of music alive and live. Over the past year, since March 2020, I was fortunate to have the SAJ support to start a class called Momo Musico, Notes on Music. And originally it was just for the community, and then I started to get requests from people who have been my students, auditors, and it's been 62 lectures since last March in my home with a growing number of Zoom boxes, and I've become friends, dear friends, specifically with these amazing people over here, Diane Cole and Phil Barnett. And that living room once a week has really helped me personally during the pandemic, when I felt as an artist that I not only lost my career, but I lost my passion. Something happened during the pandemic. And having these people in my home every week, where I had to really give them something to take away, really helped keep my spirits up. Diane and I started to talk about a concert series. And I said, I can't wait for this to start again. This is just too hard for artists not to have a place, not to have an audience. And Diane and Phil jumped at the idea. And that really is how this whole program started. There's some amazing people I have to thank. Ludwig Tomescu, who donated this concert Steinway B to us. It's a magnificent piano. He just had it delivered. To Joe Patridge and James Wu, who set up this room. They spent hours and hours last night bringing in all this equipment, and they are simply the best there is. That's all there is to say. I'd like to thank SAJ. I'd like to thank Rabbi Lauren and Debbie Rutt and Janet Brain and Lisa, because you really trusted me to put this together, and you didn't really know what's going to happen. We still don't really know what's going to happen. It could be a disaster, but we'll go with the idea that it's going to be successful. And all the moving pieces, because this was not part of their daily life, and all of a sudden they took on a very large project. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank this entire community, because I think this is exactly how one repairs their heart in a pandemic like this, is to rebuild community. And certainly, I would have never met Diane and Phil, probably. And I'm just so thankful to the SAJ, because they helped me through this really hard time. And I'm proud, so proud to be a member here. My son was bar mitzvahed here, right here a few years ago. And I have to say, this really beats playing in my bedroom. So I'm going to introduce my musicians, because I know you want a recital. I just want to tell you who all these amazing people are. Keeve Wilson on oboe. We used to work together, and she's sensational. And Keeve introduced me here to Rachel Handman, phenomenal violinist. And both of them have been together in many pits, most recently West Carousel, which actually I had gone to see. I took a picture of Keeve in the pit, and also West Side Story. Brian Lux Hernandez, we played a concert many, many years ago. He plays in the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra. He plays in the New Jersey Symphony. And he is the manager of the Five Browns, the pianists that you might know about at Juilliard. He's a busy guy. And Ani Kalajan, who I knew from a long time ago when she was a student. And I always admired her cello playing and her beautiful, warm sound. And so I knew exactly who I wanted to invite today. And last but not least, my husband, Alex Yagupski. And Alex is a big surprise. I thought I was marrying a pianist. I thought I was marrying a composer. But all of a sudden, some Passover, maybe 2 years ago, he started serenading us with his accordion, which belonged to his father in Buenos Aires, in Argentina. So he now is an accordionist. Who knew? It's a big surprise. So these are the personalities that we have today, and we will talk about the program. We're going to start with Piazzolla, Verano, from the Four Seasons. And the interesting thing about the music today is it's really different arrangements, because we all had our favorite pieces, and then we're like, Keeve, why don't you play on this one? And Rachel, why don't you play on this one? So we've just arranged everything according to how we wanted to present these melodies to you. So without further ado, I welcome Ani and Brian and myself.
So I've been asked to introduce the music of Astor Piazzolla, which we'll be doing a good bunch of pieces throughout today's concert. The first most critical and important thing about his music, or really about him, is that we have to learn how to pronounce his name. And it's Piazzolla with a hard S, despite the fact that it's an Italian name with a bunch of Z's, similar to pizza. A true Argentine will say it Piazzolla. And so as a fake Argentine that I am, since I was born here, but my folks are from Argentina, I go with the way it's supposed to be done, Piazzolla. Piazzolla has a really interesting checkered background. He actually grew up for part of his youth on the Lower East Side, and he lived either above or really close to a Jewish catering hall. So one of his influences was klezmer music. And so there's a rhythm that occurs a lot in klezmer music, the 3+3+2, you hear da 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 da, very much an Eastern European rhythm that also found its way into the Caribbean. And so in all of Piazzolla's music, there's the tango, the straight 4-beat, boom, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. But it's also polluted, if you will, by that 3+3+2. And often enough, you'll have both rhythms going on at once, creating a very particular kind of jaggedy driving force that is really the hallmark of his nuevo tango, his new tango, as he calls it. With that, let me just say, he wrote the Four Seasons in Buenos Aires. In Buenos Aires, we should just say porteño, meaning somebody from the harbor. And they weren't really written to be a set, but they've become really a set, kind of to match the Vivaldi Four Seasons. And there's a beautiful recording of arrangements of these by Gidon Kremer, where he juxtaposes the two, and you hear quotes of one in the other. Really terrific. We're not doing that version. We're doing the version originally for trio, for violin, cello, and piano, and I'm adding a little bit of color, shall we say, with my accordion skills here. Although, truthfully, it should be a bandoneon, which is a much more complicated instrument with buttons on both sides in a way that make absolutely no sense, and you have to learn 24 different patterns to know all your scales. That's just 5 more lifetimes than anybody has, for my taste. So I'll stick to just the simple accordion. Verano porteño.
I'm okay. Yes. No. Can you hear me? It is. Okay, I'm just going to talk. Well, that was amazingly exciting, even from the page-turning perspective, or perhaps even more from the page-turning perspective. The next piece is kind of going to just take us in a new direction, a little more of a romantic lullaby direction. Manuel Ponce wrote a beautiful song called Estrellita, and my memory of this song is from being in Mexico with a lot of my colleagues and friends. Some of them are here actually in this room, and we were privileged enough to play for the bicentennial of Mexico City, and we played this song in a full orchestra outside. Unbelievably gorgeous night with a beautiful Mexican singer. So I hope to sort of recreate that magic in a totally different way. Hope you enjoy.
set change. The next piece we're playing is a piece called Aldita by an Ecuadorian composer, Luis Humberto Salgado. And Salgado is probably one of the most famous composers from Ecuador. And every time I go down to Ecuador, I grab an empty suitcase and I collect as much of his piano music as possible. Salgado definitely forged a national Ecuadorian taste, style, color, but he also did experiment with the 12-tone technique, though he's certainly not considered a modernist. This piece that we're playing, Aldita, is for his granddaughter. And originally, it's for piano and voice. Well, perfect. We have oboe and violin. So this is our arrangement. So our next piece, we're back to Piazzolla. I hope my husband will say I pronounced it properly. Oh, well, I didn't look at the menu. We're not doing Piazzolla. In fact, I will let Kiev announce the piece because it doesn't involve me.
I should have been flexible and just gone with it, but our next tune is from Venezuela, and Rachel and I have an interesting story. We actually have known each other since we were in elementary school, and we never in our wildest dreams knew that we would still be performing together as adults, but we were super lucky.
in that we've traveled all around the world together and gotten to play, and we discovered that we love playing music from other countries. One being Venezuela. I found this really beautiful joropo by Carlos Bonet called La Partida, which I just loved playing this piece from Venezuela. And then it turned out Rachel said, well, guess what, Keeve? I have a tune from Venezuela.
Okay, so she's right. I had this tune that I'd been playing with my different folk bands that I play with, or bluegrass bands, and it's called Como Llora una estrella. So here's another star going on for me. And this tune is also something I fell in love with. So we had this incredible day at Keeve's apartment where she played me her tune, I played her my tune, and we realized they totally fit together. And we have sort of arranged this to, you'll hear each tune stated, and then you'll hear the marriage of the tunes. And it's just been so much fun doing it.
And now, Oblivion by Piazzolla.
First time with a pedal by myself.
So this next piece, Rachel and I were really excited when, first of all, when Claudia asked us to play the concert today. We were super happy to get to play indoors. We've played a few concerts outside, and being an oboe player, you can imagine that I haven't done too many concerts inside, although I have done a few concerts with our friend Nunu over there in the audience. And with Rachel at the Javits Center, we're actually playing on Sundays as part of Sing for Hope for when people get vaccinated, which has been really special. Yes, really amazing program they have there. And Alex, we roped into playing this incredible arrangement that Rachel and I created of this choro from Brazil. And we just can't wait to share this piece with you.
So we are back to Piazzolla, playing a very different version of Liber Tango, a tune I'm sure many of you know. And the genesis of this piece is a testament to marriage, as my husband laughs. I heard a four-hands arrangement of this on the radio, and living with a guy with a phenomenal set of ears, I said, ooh, write that for us, arrange it for us. So he went to the piano, and he came out a couple hours later with four hands. Except it wasn't sassy enough. And the person at the top stayed at the top, and the person at the bottom of the piano stayed at the bottom. And I said, psh, that will not do. We have to show what it's like to be married for two pianists to share one piano at the same time. So please make sure that I always have the melody, and you always have the rhythm, because he is the rhythm king, but make sure that our hands go over and under each other, and make it really sexy. So here we have it, Libertango. One last detail. I do like to talk. It's been a year, and we moved our piano out of the living room right before the pandemic hit, which was actually a good move because it allowed me to practice and to do my teaching in our bedroom. But our bedroom's very small. And so for 1 year and 3 months, when we started to look at this a couple of weeks ago, we had no room to move around. Plus the pandemic and wearing sneakers and high heels now, you might get a new version. So, big surprise. Our next piece is by Piazzolla. And this is another season, Primavera, the spring. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So while we're setting up for our last piece, which Keith will talk about, I just wanted to mention the next two concerts. We have a concert on Sunday, May 16th, with a very special New York City story. Renee Katz, who was a childhood friend of mine, was a marvelous flutist, and we went to Red Fox Music Festival, which was a very important part of my life, and we were dear friends. And for those of you who were in New York City in 1979, Renee was on her way to music and art, LaGuardia High School, and was pushed onto the 9 train. And miraculously, she survived, and her hand was reattached, but she was no longer able to be a flutist. And through her strength and through her support of her incredible parents, her Holocaust survivors, Renee became an occupational therapist and then a cabaret singer. And she writes her own poetry, and she weaves her story into her music. And I really hope you will come. She's really spectacular and a very special human being. That's on the 16th. On June 6th, we are having a program called Music Written Under Duress. The highlighted group will be the Cassatt String Quartet. They are playing a work that was written for them by a cantor, Gerald Cohen, and it's a memorial for the victims of Theresienstadt. And the composer will be here to talk about his work as reflection, as a memorial. And I hope that you will all join us for these two really special concerts.
So before we play our final piece, I just wanted to thank Claudia for organizing and getting us all together, and to the synagogue for hosting us too. So thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to make music with friends and colleagues again. This final piece is by surprise, as Alex would say, Piazzolla. And it's a piece called Fracanapa. It's a very quick and short tango that not a lot of people know. And I was fortunate enough to go to Argentina in 1997 and 1998, where this piece was put into my hands. It was a handwritten piece. And the Argentinians said to me at the time, "You can play this as an American, but you must play it as dirty as possible."